Hey guys, Derek here again. Today we got a 1998 Jeep Grand Cherokee with a 4-liter. Ran very good for the customer for many years until just the other day it would no longer crank over. The customer had the battery checked, that was good. The fuses were good. He had checked for power down at the starter. As you can see here, guys, this is a blueprint of the starting circuit. And down here on the diagram is the starter. All right, so this red wire comes directly from the battery. And this has power all the time. And this is our signal wire that tells the starter to come up, to basically power up and to activate when the key is turned. It comes from the starter relay. So there was no power down here at the starter when my customer had checked this for power. When the key, here's the ignition switch, when the key was turned to the start position. So how it works is, I mean, this is probably one of the more simple diagrams you guys are going to see here. When you turn that key to the start position, it will come down, power will come through the fuse block on fuse number 19. Automatic transmission. It'll go right over to D13 at your starter relay. And then what's supposed to happen is on the automatic transmission, the transmission range switch will allow ground through the switch to the relay. All right, and this is, of course, when the transmission is in park or neutral, and if the switch is working like it should, this will provide a ground to the relay. And then here's our constant power to the relay from fuse 10 in the power distribution center. All right, so for the relay to activate, guys, you need 2 powers and 1 ground. Okay, 1 power from the ignition switch, 1 power from fuse number 10 in the power distribution center, and then we have our ground that comes through the transmission range switch. When that happens, the contacts inside the relay are going to close, and it's going to send power down to our starter motor on the signal wire, and then, of course, the engine will crank over. Well, on this guy's Jeep, there's no power down here, and the relay was not activating. So one simple test, what you could do is you could just go right to the starter relay, and you can check for 2 powers and 1 ground when an assistant turns that key to the start position. And that's what I had him do. And it turns out there was no ground. The power was working just fine coming from the ignition switch, constant power and ignition switch power, but there was no ground coming over to this part of the relay. And it comes, again, right from the transmission range switch. And sure enough, guys, I had him replace this, and that did the trick. That supplied the ground, starter relay activated, and the engine starts. So basically, if you want to check it, this is your ground. There should be a 2-wire plug, I believe. It might have more wires going to it, but once you get to the transmission range switch on the transmission, pin 7 and pin 8. Pin 8 is going to be our ground, our constant ground. It's going to be a black wire. And then whenever the transmission is in park or neutral, see, P for park and N for neutral, it will then allow the ground to pass through the switch over to our starter motor. I'm sorry, over to the relay. And then the contacts inside the relay will close, send power down to the starter, and it will work. So this one is a pretty simple diagnosis. You know, you could, if you didn't want to start by checking for power, although that's a very good idea. If you don't want to start by checking for power here at the starter motor, because it might be a little harder to access, you could go right to the starter relay in some PDC in the power distribution center. And just have an assistant sit in the driver's seat with the key in the crank position and the start position. Just about any relay will work this way. 9 times out of 10, for a conventional relay to work, it needs 2 powers and 1 ground. So in this case, we have a black wire with pink stripe that should have constant battery voltage. And then our yellow and red wire that will have ignition power. So when that key's in the start position, it'll power up that side. And then this is our ground. So pretty simple diagnosis, guys. Again, you can use a test light or a voltmeter. I would recommend that you probably use a voltmeter just to be sure. Again, a power probe works really well on diagnosing starting circuits. I'll provide a link to the power probe in the description below for you guys. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to let me know below. And thanks for watching.